What's up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's defense minister has lashed out at a professor with the National Defense University. Professor Ge is accused of working with Beijing through a company he set up in China.
这种状况没有轻松，那该办人办人嘛。我们像重办就要枪毙掉，我们也期望这样子。
Lawmakers were questioning Minister Chiu about how to handle Professor Ge's case. Ge is accused of setting up the company in secret in 2014. He headed a center at the National Defense University that researched advanced military engineering. Keeping with the military, Taiwan's Air Force has 4 brand new trainer jets to help keep the country's pilots in fighting shape. The domestically made planes are the last of this year's order of 17 Brave Eagle trainers. They'll deliver 18 more next year. The Brave Eagles are meant to replace the Air Force's aging AT-3 and F-5 jet trainers. Taiwan has held its last military promotion ceremony of the year. President Tsai oversaw the promotions, which raised 26 officers to the ranks of Major General or Lieutenant General. This included officers in charge of political warfare and the military police. How will Taiwan defend itself is a major question heading into January's general elections. Opposition Kuomintang candidate Hou You-yi recently announced his defense policy proposal, but how different is it from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party stance? To find out more, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to a security analyst with the Rand Corporation, Derek Grossman.
What is different about Hou You-yi's defense policy compared to the current administration's?
We really don't know a whole lot about Hou You-yi's defense strategy, but what we do know is that recently he's talked about doing things like drafting a national security strategy, paying Taiwanese service members more, and investing in drone warfare capabilities. Now, when you look at what the DPP has been doing under Tsai Ing-wen and what a Lai Ching-te administration would likely do on defense policy, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of daylight between the two of them. The DPP also is interested in paying Taiwanese service members more, and they have been already investing in drone technology across the board in order to bolster deterrence and potentially counter China in a conflict. So again, it's unclear how what Ho is proposing is any different from the DPP.
And how different are the KMT, the Kuomintang, and the DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party, in terms of U.S. military cooperation?
I think the KMT and the DPP both highly value cooperation with the U.S. on military issues. And you really see this, especially with the big ticket sales like F-16s, for example, right? Both sides, you know, when Ma Ying-jeou was in power from 2008 to 2016, and also Tsai from 2016 on to the present, anytime there's a big military sale from the U.S., arms sale, whether it's KMT or DPP, they welcome that sale because it really bolsters their credentials in the eyes of the Taiwanese people, and it also demonstrates that Taiwan has an important partner in the United States to help counter China. So I don't expect, if the KMT were to win, next month, I don't expect the KMT to change its position on military cooperation with the U.S. What I do see, however, is kind of a de-emphasis on the need for military cooperation were the KMT to win, because their priority will be dialogue with Beijing.
Do you think the United States maybe has a preference of which party it would like to work with in the future?
I would say that the United States obviously does not does not have a preference, so to speak, in terms of who wins the election in Taiwan, but obviously it will be easier to work with the DPP than it would be with the KMT, and I say that because the DPP shares the suspicions that the U.S. has about China and shares the desire to counter China, whereas the KMT is going to look a little bit more suspiciously at the U.S. position to do those things, right? So I think that if the DPP wins, then the U.S.-Taiwan relationship will continue to go down this path of really strengthening ties, especially on the military side. in order to deal with China. I think if the KMT wins, that will probably still happen, but it will be a little bit more in fits and starts. It will be a little bit more incremental. And so that will be, I think, a change that policymakers in Washington would have to adapt to going forward.
That was our reporter Jaime Ocon speaking to Derek Grossman, a security analyst from the Rand Corporation. Taiwanese wallets may be feeling a bit thinner this year. The latest official numbers show that real wages have dropped for the first time in 7 years. Joyce Tseng reports on how this fall is weighing on the country's youth.
For many, Taiwan may seem like an attractive place to live and work. With its tech-driven infrastructure, easy access to nature, and rich yet affordable food scene. But crunching the numbers, the reality may be quite different. The latest stats show people in Taiwan made an average of $1,880 a month this year. But adjusting for inflation, it's more like $1,700 a month, and one of the lowest wages among developed countries.
全球的一个经济趋缓的状态的影响，然后奖金发放的比较少，所以它在非经常性薪资的这个部分发放就会比较少。
Taiwan's low wages are a particularly heavy burden for young people here, many of whom have already given up on certain life goals, like moving to the city and buying a house.
我自己是偏向租就好了。真的房子很贵，然后薪水很少，然后如果真的要买一个房子，我不知道要不吃不喝多久。
Taiwan's been trying to crack down on rampant property speculation by landlords, something that drives up prices, but it hasn't been very effective. Some apartments here in the country's capital cost just as much as those in New York City and London. So buying a place somewhere like this is unthinkable for many people. But even if you take Taipei out of the picture, Taiwan's housing is still among the most expensive in the world. And given the latest figures on what people make, owning a home at all is becoming an even more far-fetched dream. In the last 10 years, the number of people taking out mortgages continues to rise, with the average loan increasing from just under $110,000 to a whopping $161,000, a jump of almost 50%, and a huge amount compared to what people make. In that same period, average real wages in Taiwan have only gone up by 26%. It's a reminder for the country, which will need to rely more on its young citizens as the population rapidly ages, that it must do more to help its people feel like their life goals can be achieved. Alex Chen and Joyce Tseng for TaiwanPlus.
Future minimum wage hikes will better keep up with inflation in Taiwan. A new law calls for the minimum wage to be adjusted based on the Consumer Price Index. That's the gauge of how much everyday goods cost. This change was proposed by President Tsai during her first term, but was held up over disagreements about the details of the law. A top Taiwanese tech company is set to axe up to 100 of its workers before the year's end. Display panel maker Innolux says it's optimizing its operations. The company employs around 45,000 people worldwide. The labor cut comes despite Innolux's revenue jumping 7.8% this year. Economists say the layoffs aren't a sign of financial trouble at the company.
AI 的一些发展趋势来看，我们其实生产线使用的人会减少，未来都是朝向这个近零碳排的部分嘛，所以他们必须在做生产线都必须要做一些调整。
The Taipei 101 New Year's Eve fireworks show is getting a shakeup this year. The theme is Colorful World, and the show will use Japanese pyrotechnics for the first time since 2004. Over 16,000 fireworks will be set off in 5 minutes. The organizers say the partnership with Japan speaks of the friendship between the two countries, while the colors symbolize hope for the future. Thanks for joining me on this edition of What's Up Taiwan. Don't forget to look us up on social media. Finally today, check out these dogs strutting their stuff at a festival in Nigeria. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.